All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Waters, and I'm the manager of events and programs here at JMT Consulting. And today I have Scott Hallra from Venn Technology presenting on how to get started with the world's leading cloud platform for free. Before I turn it over to Scott, I want to go over a couple things and then we'll get started. First, we are recording this, so if for any reason you have to jump off early, we will send you a copy of the recording along with the slides. Also, if you have any questions at all during the presentation, please make sure to submit those in the Q&A box on your control panel, and we will answer those at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate it. All right, so a couple of things. We'll start off with just a quick overview of my firm, Venn Technology. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit about Salesforce, the company, why you might want to choose them for a product to manage your donors. We'll do a little bit of demo and close out with a Q&A. So real quick, couple things. I'm Scott Hallra. I'm the founder and managing partner at Venn Technology. We're headquartered just outside of Dallas, Texas. And this year, perfect timing, opened an office in Washington, D.C. just as the pandemic was getting started. So we're still going strong and keeping people busy up there, but we're multi-location and we're working with people all over the U.S. At Venn, we have a brand promise. And you see it there on the screen. We create systems that free people to focus on what they're best at. And so often we come across the controller, CFO, somebody in the finance department that is just so burned out from having to export data from here and import data over here and hope that it all matches up. And our job, our goal is to come in and help you make the systems work for you so that you can really be free to do the things that you were hired to do. We're not going to play it, but we actually released a music video this week that we're actually really, really proud of. So when you get a chance after you get this presentation, click on this, and the music video tells a bit of a story. And if you can relate to that story, we would love to come in and help you out. At Venn, we have two focus areas. So we're a little bit unique, and to the best of my knowledge, there's nobody out there that does quite what we do. We are both a Sage Intacct partner through their marketplace program, as well as a Salesforce.com partner. And we'll drill into that a little bit more. Within the Sage Intacct ecosystem, we have a couple of listings out in their marketplace. We have a Salesforce nonprofit integration, as well as a Stripe integration that allows you to take credit card payments through Stripe and have those pumped seamlessly into Sage Intacct. But moreover, we get calls every day from organizations that have all kinds of systems that they need to make these things work much more effectively with their accounting system. And so the logos that you see there on the screen are just a small sampling of the applications that we've worked with. And if you've got a system that needs to be tied in, we would love to talk with you about that. All right, so Salesforce.com. One of the things that I am incredibly proud of our team for is the certification that they have achieved. So within the Salesforce ecosystem, there's lots and lots of partners, there's lots and lots of consultants. But one of the ways that people really set themselves apart is by going through a very rigorous certification process. And as you can see here on the screen, we have many, many, many different certifications throughout our organization. I personally hold, I think, 6 certifications. We've got other people that hold even more than that. But one that I'm actually especially proud of, we've kind of got it called out there on the lower right part of the screen. About 2 years ago, Salesforce came out with their nonprofit cloud consultant certification. And one of the members on our team was actually one of the very first people in the world to pass that certification. So we don't just know Salesforce, we know nonprofit. A couple of other things about us. At Venn, we look at code as an absolute last resort. And that's one of the reasons that we love working with Salesforce.com. There's so much in the system that you're able to configure as opposed to customize or code. And we want to do that. We want to take that configuration as far as we possibly can to meet somebody's needs rather than jumping straight into code. We also look at the big picture. So when somebody comes to us with a problem and says, I'm trying to solve getting this from here to there, we take a step back and we say, okay, well, where does your process actually begin? You're saying that you need to solve for this gap here, but what happens before this? And then what happens after that? We've got to really think about things all the way through upstream and downstream. And our team here at Venn, we're trained and focused on looking at an entire chain of events. All right, that's enough about us. We are going to talk a little bit about Salesforce. If I could hear you, I'd love to hear how many of you might actually be using it already. For now, I'm just going to assume that nobody is already on Salesforce. A little bit of history. The company was founded in the late 90s. They were a company that made it very well out of the dot-com bust that followed the boom. They are one of, if not the largest cloud applications in the world. And if you kind of look back at the history of the company and the history of what I'll call the cloud concept, Salesforce, in my opinion, was really responsible for making cloud what it is today. They drove adoption. They got people over the fear of not having their systems on premise in that server room, and really, really brought cloud into the mainstream. While Salesforce is a for-profit company that is doing very, very well, they were also started with a very philanthropic mission. And so alongside the company, Salesforce started a nonprofit, and they also launched this thing they call the 111 program, where they give 1% of their product, 1% of their people's time, and 1% of their resources to all sorts of charities. And over the years, that's totaled over $1.3 billion in giving in the form of technology, volunteer time, and grants. And that technology piece is something we're going to drill into a little bit more now. So the title of this presentation was How to Get Started with the World's Leading Cloud Platform for Free. And when we say for free, you truly can get started with this for free. So Salesforce, through their nonprofit grant program, will give any 501c3 or higher ed institution 10 free licenses of their enterprise CRM product. And one of the questions that we almost always get asked is, well, hey, I've got 12 or 15 or 20 people that would need to use the system. What happens when we cross over that 10? Well, it's really great. As a for-profit, my firm, Venn Technology, we pay $150 per user per month for our licenses. Nonprofits pay $36 per user per month for that same core CRM user. It's the exact same functionality that I have. There's no difference. So all that to say, they provide very, very deep discounts on additional licenses. And there are many, many products within the Salesforce portfolio. They provide hefty discounts to nonprofits across their entire catalog. The other really neat thing is that they offer something called the Nonprofit Success Pack that's no cost whatsoever. The Nonprofit Success Pack is a package that gets installed into your Salesforce environment that takes the powerful data model and Salesforce platform and makes it work better in a nonprofit donor or grant funded context. And we'll drill into some of those, some examples of that here in just a bit. So Scott, that's great. Free, that sounds great, but you know what? There are so many other fundraising platforms out there. Just because it's free to get started doesn't mean it's better. You know, with all these different applications, why should we go with Salesforce? And one of the ways that I typically answer this question is with something that I call the smartphone analogy. and it's a little bit outdated, but if this was 3 or 4 years ago and you went into the Verizon or the AT&T store and you were going to get a new cell phone, and the sales rep came up to you and said, well, hey, we've got these great Windows phones. We've also got the iPhone and a plethora of Android devices. I'm guessing that most people back then would have chosen the iPhone or the Android, because with the Windows phone, even though the phone itself was pretty powerful, pretty capable, they didn't have this robust ecosystem of third parties that were creating apps that extended the functionality of that core phone, that core platform. And Salesforce, I would say, is like the iPhone or like that Android device when compared to many of the other tools on the market. Salesforce has had something called the AppExchange. This has been around for probably close to 15 years now, if not longer. And it is like the App Store or the Google Play Store, but for your CRM. At last count, the last count that I could find anyway, said that there were over 3,400 apps out there on the AppExchange, and I'm confident that that number is way higher today. But over 3,400 apps that you can install or somehow connect into your Salesforce that extend the capabilities of that core platform. Some examples, there are dozens and dozens of online giving tools that will allow you to seamlessly take that gift online, have it flow directly into Salesforce, look for an existing donor to match that gift to, or create a new donor. There are event registration tools. Obviously, 2020 has been a little bit different than we all expected it to be. But back in the day when you might be putting on your 5K or putting on your big gala, you might use some event registration tool like Eventbrite. And because of the power of this platform and what's available on the AppExchange, those event registrations could flow seamlessly into Salesforce. Or perhaps you're an organization that has lots and lots of volunteers and you need to sign people up for shifts and make sure that they've got a background check, and on and on and on. There are all kinds of tools available on the AppExchange that the other platforms just don't have, they just can't compete with. The other really neat thing about the AppExchange is that, much like Salesforce.com themselves, many of the partners that have written these apps that extend the functionality offer either free or deeply discounted access to their applications. So Salesforce overall can be a very cost-effective way for your nonprofit to manage technology. So we've got the ability for third parties, for third-party tools to extend and enhance the capabilities, but there's a lot that we can do ourselves. Excuse me. So in addition to the pre-built functionality that Salesforce offers in the core application, there's this underlying platform that allows us to do all kinds of things. And earlier I talked about how at Venn, we focus on configuration as opposed to customization or writing custom code. Now, there's definitely a time and a place where we have to get into that, but Salesforce gives us the ability to come in and add custom fields, build tables, automate processes through a very visual type tool. They've got great mobile capabilities. If we needed to extend our system out to people outside of the organization, maybe we don't want to give them access to everything, we could leverage the Salesforce community to expose parts of our database to them. And then powerful analytics that sit on top of it as well. Up to this point, we've spent our time kind of talking more about the donor side of things, and in my estimation, 80% or more of organizations that have signed up to use Salesforce are using it for a donor management use case. But the great thing about Salesforce is it can be used for so many more things. I touched on volunteer management. That's just one example. I want to talk about a couple of different clients that we've worked with that have actually taken that donor management use case and kind of tossed it to the side and done a whole lot of other things with the platform. So we've got a client that's a very large church here in the Dallas area that we've been working with for years. And what's really interesting about them is they do not use Salesforce to track money that is coming into the church. They actually use Salesforce to track funding requests, where they're actually going to send money outside of the church to help their partners go accomplish their mission. And so users, the people that work within the church, have the ability to submit this funding request. And they do that via Salesforce. Once a quarter, they host a quarterly giving meeting in which everybody's able to come, state their case, and try to get the committee to approve their funding request. And they manage that meeting out of Salesforce. And once somebody is approved, if they're going to give them a full or a partial gift, they then have a lot of documentation that they need to track. And so we've built functionality into Salesforce for them to store these documents, as well as track the last time that they got that W-8 or W-9. And we've got reports that tell them when it's time for them to go get an updated version. And so not only do we use Salesforce to track what they are giving, but we use Salesforce to track all of the interactions that we have with these partner organizations. And it gives us that great 360-degree view of the relationship with that partner. Another organization that we work with, this group actually does use Salesforce for donor management. That's really where it started. But they had an operational challenge that they were trying to solve with spreadsheets and all kinds of other things, and it just wasn't working. This organization puts on all kinds of educational classes all around the globe, and they needed to be able to report back to their board, how many people have we touched in a given week? Where are we working with these people? What languages, what content are we going through, and so forth. And so, leveraging the power of the Salesforce platform, we were able to build out a system that allowed them to track all of this. And what was really cool was that we could actually tie the giving that was coming in for these various things to the results, the outcomes that funding was actually able to create. And so it gave us the ability to tell a very powerful story to the board and to major donors. All right, so with that, we're going to get into a demo here. And we're going to just touch on some really high points. Salesforce is so deep and wide, and it can be applied to so many different things that we could be here for days trying to go through through every part of the system. So with that, we'll start here. This is the home page. This is where you would start your day if you were using Salesforce. This is what you would see when you first log into the system. We have a tremendous amount of control and flexibility when it comes to how this and many other aspects of the system are configured to display things. We can move these widgets all over the place, but for demo purposes, this is a pretty comprehensive look. So up here at the top, we've got this message bar, and we can come in and we can change out these messages. Again, if 2020 were different, we'd probably be holding galas. This time we're holding a virtual gala, and we put a message out there to ask our users to contact all of their major donors before the big event. Down here, we get into some really great analytics, and with Salesforce, we've got these fantastic reports and dashboards, and we're able to put some of those analytics right here on our homepage. I'm not going to go through all of these, but here we get a breakout of how much of our funding is coming from individuals versus companies. And here we're able to track, what campaigns our funding is coming through. Lots and lots of great information. Down here, we've got these other widgets. We've got events and we've got tasks. The events, these are going to be things that would appear on a calendar. So if you had coffee scheduled with somebody, hey, we're gonna go meet to talk about this. that would appear here. And before you ask, yes, this has the ability to sync with Outlook or Google Apps if that's what you're using for your calendar. Tasks, on the other hand, are going to be things that they may have a due date, but it's not, I'm going to do this this thing from 11 to 12 today. It's more, I need to follow up with this person about some kind of topic. And so you've got this task list here. And what's great about this task list is if you need to collaborate on things with other people in the organization, you have the ability to task them with certain things. And also it gives everybody a view into who has accomplished what. Salesforce also has a very robust approvals engine. And so if there were certain business processes where a person needed to evaluate something before moving ahead, we can route requests through this really powerful approvals engine. And then what we've got here on the right that looks kind of like a Twitter feed or a Facebook feed, this is something called Salesforce Chatter. This is kind of an internal collaboration tool, internal social network that is built right here into Salesforce. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit further in just a minute. So with that, let's take a look up here across the top. This is our navigation bar. And these tabs up here represent different functional areas within the system. And so, for example, accounts, we're going to drill into an account here in a minute. We can click here and we can create these lists, different ways to kind of view our accounts and take action on them. And the same thing would be true if we clicked into contacts or campaigns and so forth. For now, I'm going to hop over. I went ahead and pulled up an account. And this account represents the Spurrier household. And when we come into the Spurrier household, when we come to this details section, this is where we're going to find some information specific to the household. So we get contact information. Right now, we see that there's one member of the household that's in the system. As we scroll down the page, we get some really great insights into what our donation history has been with this particular household. So we can see when they first gave, when they last gave, the average gift, their largest and smallest and best total. So lots of really great information. And as you might expect, we absolutely have the ability to come in and add our own fields so that we can track those things that are important to your organization. Next, I'm going to click over here to this related tab. Salesforce is a relational database. And by that, I mean, we have the ability to make certain records relate to other records in the system. And so while we are on this, the Spurrier household account, there are things in the system that are related to that account record. The first one I want to touch on is the contacts. So right now, there's only one contact here in the Spurrier household. We've got Sid. But you know what? I bumped into Sid the other day, and he told me that he and his wife, Stacy, want to get together to talk about what else they might be able to do with the organization. And so we're going to record Stacy in the system. And now, if we were to come back into the Spurrier household, we would see both Sid and Stacy. And if your organization might need to use Salesforce for a more operational context, and maybe you need to track children, you could keep adding here till your heart's content. You can keep adding those contacts and joining them together under the household. The next thing that I want to touch on is this opportunities section. Opportunities represent financial transactions, be it a one-time or a recurring gift or a grant. So we can see here on September 17th, the Spurriers gave $100. And if we were to come in and I may have picked the wrong one here. If we were to come in and put in a new gift, for today, So we've recorded a second gift, and we can see that it is tied back to that household. Sid was our primary donor. And if we go back to the household, we talked earlier about that great donor intelligence that that Salesforce gives us. And so tonight there'd be a process that would run, and it would update all this information, and we would see a new largest gift and a new last gift and so forth. And then we can also see when we added Sid's wife, it updated the number of household members to 2. And so again, if we were to keep going down the line and adding children or others, those counts would change. We can use that to drive reports or other workflows. Very, very powerful functionality. Some other things that we have here in the system are the ability to track multiple addresses. And so the idea here is that if you've got, maybe it's one of your larger donors, and maybe they've got multiple properties, and they spend half their year where it's warm and half the year where it's cool. You could actually come in here and create multiple addresses for them, and you can actually put start and end dates. So if you know they kind of work like clockwork, you can put these start and end dates in, and the system will actually auto adjust their current address based on the dates that you give it. Something else that we'll see throughout the system is this notes and attachments. So we have the ability, if we, maybe we ran into the Spurriers at our 5K, and we took some pictures, and we wanted to make sure that everybody could see them when they view the Spurrier household account. We can easily come into Salesforce and just drag and drop a file, and now it's a part of their record. So up to this point, we've spent our time really kind of talking more about the individual donor side of things. But for some of you organizations that are on the call, you may be funded by organizations or foundations, and Salesforce can absolutely work in that context as well. And so I've come over here to a new tab, and we see that we've actually got an account for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'm going to hop back and forth here for just a second. One of the things that we did when we set up the Spurrier household, and one of the things that we did when we set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is we told Salesforce what kind of account this was. So for example, the Spurrier record is a household record, whereas the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is an organization. And when we tell Salesforce what type of record we're dealing with, it gives us the ability to track different things. So notice here on this details tab, the fields that we have. And for example, we have a website. Conversely, when we go to the Spurrier household, this looks a little bit different. The Spurriers, like most people, don't have their own website. So there's no need to put that website field on the page layout and clutter it up. So Salesforce gives us great segmentation, and in doing so, it also gives us the ability to create a better user experience that's more tailored to the context that we're working in. So being that we are working in an account and a foundation where we are pursuing grants, let's come in and take a look at a grant. So we're still using that same opportunity object, and we still have the ability to do all kinds of financial coding around this. But with a grant, we're going to treat things a little bit different. Again, we still have our financial coding here in this GAU allocation. But with a grant, there's a payment schedule, right? If this was a $1 million grant, they're probably not going to write us the full $1 million check up front. We're going to get payments over time. And Salesforce allows us to set up an anticipated schedule so that we can kind of track when do we expect to have money coming in for this grant. Something else that's a little bit different about a grant versus a donation is that when we get a donation, the donors typically aren't coming to us once a quarter or every few weeks saying, hey, I need to know what you're doing with the money. But with a large foundation, with a large grant, you've got all kinds of reporting that you need to do. And so here, we've got the ability to track the deliverables that we owe back to the organization for this specific grant. And so as you can see, here's the Q1 report. That is an interim report. and it's due on April 15th of 2021. And once we have taken care of what we need to do, once we put that report together, we can come back here, we can attach that report, and now it's a permanent part of this record that we can come back and anybody can reference as needed. We talked earlier about that tasking functionality and the ability to create tasks and assign them out to other people. There can be a lot of effort that goes into putting out one of these reports, and so you can leverage that task functionality to all collectively contribute to the creation of that report, as opposed to putting it on one person's shoulders. So again, very, very powerful. Lots and lots that we can do here. The final thing that I want to show is the analytics side of the system. Is going to come with lots and lots of pre-built reports, and if we were to install the Nonprofit Success Pack, it would install a number of nonprofit specific reports as well. But building reports in Salesforce is pretty easy. Once you've got a feel for where the data lives, what objects in the system the data lives on, the report writer itself is pretty straightforward. So we're going to come in, and since we're dealing with demo data, we're going to take off our date filter. And we want to know how much of the gifts that we have brought into the organization is from households versus organizations. And so we're going to come in and we're going to take a look at our opportunities that are closed won, and we want to group it by that record type that tells us where the gifting came from. So as you can see, the system has already done a lot of the work for us, and we get a long list of all the individual gifts. But you know what? We don't really need to see that. So let's come back in, let's edit this, and let's just turn off those rows so that all we get are the summary level information. And let's throw in a nice little donut chart. And we'd have the ability to come in and handle things by count, or if we had this arranged a little bit different, we could do it by the dollar volume. And let's just say we want to show the percentages in our segments here. So we click run, and there we go. We built that report in probably less than 60 seconds. Really straightforward. So again, tremendous power, tremendous extensibility through third-party applications out on the AppExchange, and you do get to get started with the system for free with those first 10 users. So that wraps up the demo portion. If this is something that was exciting and is something that you might want to pursue further, you can go out to salesforce.org/get-started, and there'll be a sign-up form, and they'll take you through the process. It's pretty painless, which is a huge relief when dealing with large organizations. It's pretty painless to actually get up and get started with that 10-user product grant. So with that, let's open the floor to questions.
All right, Scott, thank you. I think you might have stated this, but if you could repeat it, after the first 10 licenses, how much do additional licenses cost?
That is a great question. So after the first 10 licenses, the first 10 are free. After that, for the CRM license, that would allow you to do all the things that we showed in the demo. That license is normally $150 per person per month. The nonprofit price for that is $36 per user per month. And then if you wanted to get into some other products like their communities or marketing automation, they're going to offer you really steep discounts on those additional products that you add on. Good question.
Great. Next, we have lots of data in Razor's Edge. Can you help us move it to Salesforce?
So it's interesting. We see a lot of people that have been on Razor's Edge for a long time that want to get into something a little more modern, something a little more flexible, something a little more extensible. And so we do a lot of projects where we move people off of Razor's Edge and onto Salesforce. And the answer is yes, absolutely. It wouldn't do you any good to go set up this great donor management system and not have all of that legacy data in it for you to use. So yes, we can absolutely help you make that transition of data from your old system into Salesforce.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions that we have. So we will be sharing Scott's contact information, again, a copy of the recording and slides as well in our follow-up email. So if you have additional questions, you can reach out to Scott or the team over here at JMT Consulting. Actually, we just got a question, so I'm going to read that off to you, Scott, before we wrap it up.
All right.
Somebody says, I already have a corporate underwriting team in Salesforce, but now a foundation team is interested. Don't see the rest of the question though.
So we'll see if they add to the question.
Yeah.
When somebody kind of presents this idea of, hey, we've got multiple groups within an organization that need to use Salesforce, one of the questions that we usually get asked is around security. So I don't want this group over here to see what this group is doing and vice versa. And within Salesforce, we have very granular security that we can apply, and we can get it down all the way. If we had to, we can tweak the security to the point that we can make it so that an individual user can't do this but can do that. So setting up security across groups, not a problem.
So he finished up the question. He said, can I have more than one configuration set up?
So the short answer is yes. The longer answer would be, hey, does it make sense based on our use cases to actually set up a separate Salesforce environment? Or do we want to do this all in the same Salesforce environment? And, much like that example we showed a minute ago where the household account looked very different from the organizational account, we could build out pages that are completely different configurations for Group A versus Group B. Or perhaps we've got, we want to kick off an email when this one thing happens in the system, but we only want it to apply to this group or that group. As long as we can define the logic that would make that happen, we could certainly build Salesforce in a way to support both groups in the same environment.
So he also says if the underwriting is not using Nonprofit Success Pack, can the foundation team use it?
Yes, absolutely. It gets it's a little bit more in-depth conversation, but the answer is we can make it so that the existing team doesn't even know that it's in there. It would be completely hidden from them.
Great, thank you.
And I'd love to talk with you more offline. Reach out, my info's up there. Would love to help kind of talk you through what that could look like.
I can also connect you, Scott, I can share. So, all right, well then I want to thank everyone for their time. Scott, thank you as well for your time and for joining us today. And for more webinars like this, you can go to jmtconsulting.com and visit our events tab. And I hope that everyone has a good rest of their day. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Bye.